Hiya, we're at it again with another deck help. Today we're looking at the final characters of the 4 trial decks that people have been playing with, this character being Yasuo. Yasuo is a very interesting deck, due to his character being able to abuse the one unique mechanic in this game of moving units all around the game. Under a good pilot, Yasuo will be able to move multiple units more than one time per turn and even conquer both battlefields with just one unit. As always, we will be looking in detail at the Legend unit, its Champions unit, signature spells, battlefields, and the cards I will be using for my version of Yasuo. Now before we start, please consider the following. I want to get clear that any of these decks are not the definite way to play them. These are just decks I build in a way to fully understand how a character works. They are more like a base on where to work from, and everybody is more than welcome to either copy and or modify any of the decks to better suit their playstyle and, as time passes, the current meta. Honorary mentions of cards that are not part of the main deck but are super helpful as well will be mentioned at the end, so make sure to stay tuned for those. Let us now look at our Legend unit, Yasuo. He is under the Calm and Chaos domains, which means his playstyle can be both very random but also very controlled. Within the Chaos domain, you are going to have a lot of movement effects with some neat surprise effects to your opponent, while the Calm domain will give you your defensive tools and your counters to protect your units and fields. Yasuo has only one ability, but a very powerful one. By using 2 energies and exhausting him, you are able to move a friendly unit to or from base, meaning you either go from base to battlefield or from battlefield to base. This, however, works with only one unit at a time, so you have to be careful on which unit you're moving. This can be extremely helpful since it's able to move a unit regardless of position. You can either move a unit that just came into the field or recall a ready unit from a battlefield so it can go and attack the other location. The way you use the Yasuo can easily change the game into your favor if used correctly. For the battlefields, this one is one of the decks with a lot of good options. However, out of all of the available battlefields, I think the ones from the trial deck are actually great choices. Let us go over them and explain why. The first battlefield I like to play is Targon's Peak. This battlefield has the effect of, when you conquer here, ready 2 runes at the end of this turn. A very simple, yet powerful effect. Considering a lot of your spells protect you by either cancelling your opponent's spells or buffing your units, you need active runes to play them. This battlefield will solve that issue by help you get extra runes during your opponent's turn. However, this can be a double-edged sword since it can also be used by your opponent, so make sure to conquer this battlefield as soon as you can so you can get this effect first. The next battlefield is Windswept Hillock, a battlefield that gives all the units here ganking. Normally, you can only go from base to battlefield or from battlefield to phase. However, ganking is an ability that allows you to go directly from battlefield to battlefield. If your unit doesn't have ganking, this will help you go from Hillock into your opponent's battlefield. However, you can't go from your opponent's battlefield into Hillock unless you find a way to give your units ganking again, so make sure to plan your conquering accordingly. As for the last battlefield, we have Reverse Row, a battlefield that protects one of your units from dying. When defending, you can choose one unit to go to base. This is very helpful to save your most powerful units like Yasuo Remorseful. A lot of units in this deck revolve around attacking a lot more rather than defending, so being able to save them from death with this battlefield is a lifesaver. Now that we've seen the battlefields, let us now look at our chosen champions. As per currently, on the time of making this video, there's only 2 chosen champions per unit. In this case, we have the green Yasuo, which is Yasuo Remorseful, and a purple Yasuo, which is Yasuo Windrider. The one chosen champion everybody knows is Yasuo Remorseful. This is the only one that was available in Yasuo's trial deck. He costs 6 energy and 2 green power to play him. He has 1 ability, yet it is a very strong one. His ability states, when I attack, deal damage equal to my might to an enemy unit here. This ability happens before the actual fight, meaning if you're the one attacking with Yasuo, you're most likely killing a unit before the fight even happens. And considering that damage is equal to the might, it's not always 6 free damage. It can be a lot more if you get to increase Yasuo's might with an effect before. This effect only targets 1 unit at a time, so if you're facing a deck with multiple units like Victor, you wouldn't be able to spread the damage. It would all be the effect damage on 1 unit, and then you get to spread out the battle damage later. So be careful on who you are choosing whenever you're targeting for the effect damage and when you're going for the battle damage. The second Yasuo is Yasuo Windrider. This is a 5 energy, 1 purple power unit with 4 might. He has 2 abilities, the first one being ganking, which we explained earlier during the battlefield section of this video. The second ability is that whenever he moves for the 3rd time this turn, you score 1 point. There's not that many abilities in the game that instantly give you a point for free, so this is a rare ability that can be good, especially since it's something that can give you the victory point. The only downside is that he needs to be moved 3 times in order to play this ability. Within the Yasuo deck, it is very easy to move a unit 2 times. You can just move it a unit by itself, then move it again with your Legend Yasuo. However, that 3rd time may need to require another card, either with something like Last Breath, Matter Marauder, or even Ride the Wind, which is something you would need to wait until you draw into it. Sadly, on top of that, not all battlefields are always yours, so trying to fight with them with only 4 might might be a little bit tricky. But if you're struggling with that final point and you have the means to play this ability, this can guarantee you the victory point for sure. For the deck that I play, I like running 3 of Yasuo Remorseful, while not playing any of Windrider. This is mainly because there's so many good cards to put into Yasuo that I want to keep this deck as close to 40 as possible. However, building a deck that revolves around moving Windrider 3 times every turn can be a very scary thing. Maybe I'll build that deck in the future and show you how it works if there's enough interest in the comments. Moving into Yasuo's signature spell, this 3 energy 2 power cost spell is called Last Breath, an action spell that makes you ready any friendly unit and deal damage equal to its might to an enemy unit at any battlefield. This is by far one of the strongest signature spells in the game as of right now. Not only are you able to ready any unit, whether if it's your or one of your partners in a 2v2, but it can also kill an enemy unit at any battlefield, and with the fact that it's an action card, you can surprise your opponent in the middle of a showdown. Under the right hands, this spell is key to either full attack or conquer both battlefields, or being able to defend your battlefields from an enemy attack with a very high might, so having 3 in the main deck is the play for me. The main deck that I have for Yasuo is filled with a variety of good cards, but as previously mentioned, some of the best staples in the game are the seals. With Yasuo running a lot of good cards under the Calm Domain, a lot of your power usage will come from the green color, which means you'll be recycling a lot of this color, so having 2 of these seals is good enough to prevent harsh deep building. Defy is a great card that I keep adding in between 1 or 2 copies of. A 1 energy, 1 green power reaction spell that can counter any spell as long as the spell that we counter costs less than 4 energy and less than 2 power to play. Considering we never know what our opponent plays all the time, I like being safe by playing 1 of these copies in the main deck while having the rest that I need on the sideboard. Charm is a great card that can work both offensively and defensively. By paying 1 energy and 1 green power, you are able to move any enemy unit. Now, the beautiful thing about this spell is that you can move any unit anywhere. This is kinda like having a Legend Yasuo but for your opponent. The most basic use of this card is to move an opponent from a battlefield back to its base. However, if you already control a base, you could use this spell to force a battle between the unit of your choosing into your battlefield. If done right, you can get rid of a troublesome unit that your opponent refuses to move into a battlefield. Discipline is a reaction spell that can save you in a pinch. By paying 2 energy, you can increase the might of a unit that you control by 2. In addition, this card also allows you to draw a card on resolution. With no power cost and the draw power, I like having this card as a 2-of. Fight or Flight is a card that I love more the more I use it. By paying 2 energy, you can move any unit from a battlefield back to its base. Similar to plenty of the other effects we've seen, this can be done for both saving your units or dealing with your opponents. Plus with Hidden, you can pay 1 power to hide it and use it for free later. How you use this card will be a huge impact on your victory. Zonia's Hourglass is a very special gear. You can either pay 2 energy to play it right away, or hide it with Hidden. Once it's in your field, whenever one of your units is about to die, you can kill this gear to recall the unit instead. Considering Yasuo is a big part of your strategies in this deck, this gear can be a lifesaver in order to keep him alive. Traveling Merchant is a cheap unit with a good effect. He is 2 energy and 2 might with an effect that reads, when I move, discard 1 card, then draw 1. This doesn't only help with hand quality, but if you ever reach 0 cards in your hand, then this card helps you get a free card, so having 2 in your deck is a good idea. Clockwork Keeper is another great cheap unit. With the same stats of 2 energy and 2 might, this card can also help you with much needed draw power. When you play this card, by paying 1 green power, you are able to draw 1 card. This effect is an additional cost to bring him into the field, so you'll get the effect only once, so having 2 is a safe number. Ride the Wind is an action spell that costs 2 energy and 1 purple power. Its ability reads, move a friendly unit and ready it. With this in mind, this card helps you move your units multiple times per turn. With how helpful this effect is, having 2 is a good number so you can use it on your units or your teammates. Rebuke is one of the most annoying cards for your opponent to deal with. This spell costs 2 energy and 2 purple power to play. By doing so, you are able to return an enemy unit at the battlefield back to your opponent's hand. Due to being an action, you can use this during your opponent's showdown, and with it costing 2 power, it is safe from cards like Defy that negate low-cost spells. Find Your Center is one of the few cards I play at 3. With very few cards in the game that draw or ramp, this one does both. By paying 3 energy, you are able to draw 1 card and channel 1 Rune Exhausted. And even if you draw this card late game, its cost is reduced by 2 if your opponent is 3 points away from the victory point. Caitlyn Patrolling is a very unique card. This is a unit that costs 3 energy, 1 green power with a stat of 3 might. She has 2 unique abilities, the first one being that she must be assigned damage last, the very exact opposite of tank. This unit is safe from a lot of attacks since she will be the last one to be dealt damage within a crowd. Her second ability is to exhaust herself in order to deal damage to an enemy unit at any battlefield. The damage is always equal to her might, and you can only play this ability as long as she's on a battlefield, so with these limitations, I like having just one of her. Windwall is one of the best counters in the game. By paying 3 energy and 2 green power, you are able to counter any spell. This card can be a lifesaver. However, due to a similar logic as I had with Defy, I am comfortable with playing just 2 until I feel like I need to put more in. Sona Harmonious is a unit that makes a lot of plays live. She is a 4 energy, 1 green power unit with 4 might. This card has the ability of, while I am at a battlefield, ready 4 friendly runes at the end of your turn. As long as you can keep protecting her, you are able to ready 4 runes that you can use for your spells that you plan to use on your opponent's turn. And as a bonus, if you're playing a 2v2, you are able to ready your partner's rune as well. Due to all these great effects, this is a must at 3 for me. Now, talking about the best counter in the game, we have Mystic Reversal. This spell doesn't really counter a spell, but it makes you take control of it. By paying 4 energy and 3 green power, this card is effectively a unit reverse for any spell that your opponent plays. Although, due to its 3 power cost, I feel like having this one as a one-off and maybe have others in my side deck. Madden Marauder is one of the high cost cards in this deck. It costs 5 energy with a stat of 4 might. When you play him, you are able to move an enemy unit from a battlefield back to its base. Similar to a lot of effects in this deck, this one can move any unit for your defensive or offensive plays. Plus, it's a unit with tank, which is a nice bonus, so having 2 in this deck is a safe number. Ari Alluring is a card that I also like having in this deck. A 5 energy, 1 green power with a stat of 4 might, this unit has a simple yet powerful ability. When this unit holds, you score 1 point. Not only can this card give you 2 points in one battlefield, but it can also give you the victory point that a lot of people struggle with. With this being said, I play 2 so I can still see it, but hopefully not as early so I can see it mid to late game. Lee Sin Ascetic is a very powerful unit. This card costs 5 energy, 1 green power, and it has a might of 5 on face. However, it has shield, which means it gains 1 more might when defending. Plus, on top of that, he has the ability to exhaust himself to gain a buff, which means another might as long as he has that buff. And as of the time of making this video, he is the only unit in this game that can have more than 1 buff at a time, so he can keep buffing himself to become a very big unit. But with how little space I have left in the deck, I like running only 1 copy of them. And for our last card in the deck, we have Possession, one of the strongest cards in the game This card can gain control of an enemy unit at a battlefield by paying 8 energy and 3 purple power. With it being an action too, it can be a very nasty surprise for your opponent if they're not careful. But with its very high cost, I like being safe at just 1 copy. With so many good cards to go in Yasuo, it's very hard for me to keep it at 40. There's a lot of cards that I keep going back and forth that I keep adding and removing. But for those cards that I had to exclude in this build of the deck, but they're still great for Yasuo, I have this following list. Let's start with Engard. This spell is a reaction that costs just 1 energy. By doing so, it increases the might of one of your units you control by 1. However, if it's fighting alone, it does get 1 more additional might. This effect is for the rest of the turn, so it's a great way to buff your units while attacking or defending. Gust can be an annoying way to deal with your opponent's low might units. By paying just 1 energy, you can return back to the hand 1 unit with a might of 3 or less that is on a battlefield. As much as I love to annoy with this card, I like having this card as a sideboard because I like to see what my opponent plays first, then see if it's worth running. Block is a great way to defend your units. As mentioned, Yasuo does great attacking but not as much defending. So having a spell that can give you 3 more might when defending, as well as tank, is a nice way to protect your units. And with the ability of being able to hide it, it's a great surprise to give to your opponent. Flash is very similar to Fight or Flight. However, this only works with your units. This, in return, is able to return up to 2 units back to base. So in a scenario where you need to save multiple units, Flash is a far more better option. Although running both can be super annoying for your opponent. The Siren is a gear that works similar to your Legend Yasuo. It only works though from battlefield to phase, so you have to be careful on how you use it. I personally use it for my ready units at a battlefield, move 1 unit with Siren, and then another one with Yasuo Legend, and then send both units to attack the other battlefield. Tide Turner is a very interesting card. It's a unit that costs 2 energy and has a stat of 2 might. He has the ability of, when you play me, you may choose a friendly unit, move me to its location, and it to my original location. The wording can be tricky for some players, but it essentially swaps locations with another unit of yours when he is played. So if you need extra damage, extra defense, or even trying to save a unit, this card can be that lifesaver. What makes this card exceptional, in my opinion, is the hidden part, so you can hide him and then use him on dire emergencies. Rune Prison is an action card that costs 2 energy and 1 green power. All it does is stun 1 enemy unit, which means whichever unit you stun, it won't fight back against your unit. This is a way to save your Yasuo from a fight in case they're fighting with something big that could kill him when attacking. Inverted Timelines is a good staple to have, a normal spell that costs 3 energy and 1 purple power to play. When you do, this forces all players to discard their hand, then draw 4 cards. If you find yourself getting no cards in your hand often, you can play this card to get a fresh new hand, or get rid of a possible brick hand. Fading Memories is a card I like to play in my sideboard. It's a normal spell that costs 4 energy and 1 purple power. When you play it, it gives any unit temporary, which means that unit that you choose will die at the start of that player's turn before even scoring. So if there's a giant unit that you know you can't beat, you can play this card and not worry about that fight. Stealthy Pursuit is a card that was alongside Yasuo's trial deck, and for a good reason. Whenever you move a unit, she moves alongside with them, which means if done right, whenever you use Yasuo's effect to move 1 unit, she will follow that unit so you can have a showdown with multiple units now. Zonai Bouncer is a unit that's very similar to Rebuke. When this unit is played, you return back a unit from a battlefield back to its owner's hand. It does cost 4 energy and 2 purple power to play it, and with a might of 2, this is one of those cards that can be good to play, but iffy to keep getting back and forth. But it is a good option for you to know that it exists. Following the theme of moving units at will, we have Blitzcrank, a 5 energy, 1 green power unit with 5 might. Not only does this unit has tank as one of its abilities, but whenever you play him directly into a battlefield, you may choose an enemy unit to move to where he is, forcing a fight in that battlefield. So it's a good way to keep control of your enemy units of your choosing. Whenever he holds, he does go back to your hand, so you'll be able to trigger his effect again and again. I personally see this as a sideboard card to see what my opponent plays first so I know what to target. Kain Unleashed is another unit that was playable in the trial deck version of this deck. A 6 energy, 1 purple power unit with 6 might. Kain has the ability of whenever he moves twice, he doesn't take damage this turn. As mentioned early in this video, moving a unit twice is very easy with Yasuo, so having fights with Kain where he doesn't take damage is very easy to do. Plus, with ganking, he is able to move wherever he wants very easily. And for our last card, we have White Flame Protector, a big unit that costs 8 energy and 2 green power with a stat of 8 might. Whenever you play it, it gives any unit of your choosing 8 might this turn. I personally like giving the buff to Yasuo Remorseful, which in this turn will buff it into 14 might. Then Yasuo can deal 14 damage to one unit with his effect, then spread 14 damage during normal combat. And even once the effect is over, you are left with a big unit that you can still use to attack or defend on later turns. Now, that was a lot. I did mention multiple times that there's a lot of great cards for Yasuo, as it's a deck with a lot of great options, and the way you use those options can make victory either very easy or a challenge. Hopefully with all these cards mentioned in the video, this helps you out get an idea on how to build your Yasuo deck. This guideline is meant to keep cards at 4 in the main, but it might be one of those decks where once I play it, I might keep it a little bit above 40. Can't wait to see how others build their Yasuo though. But in the meantime, I need to start preparing for the next video. Now we have finished all the characters in the trial decks, it is time to move into the characters in the main set. Is there a character you want to see next? Is there other cards that I missed? Let me know in the comments. Thank you players, and until next time.